the heart of a relentless war, Ukrainian forces unleash a storm of precision strikes, lighting up Russian skies with explosions that echo across borders. Explosive drone swarms and missile barges rip through enemy strongholds. Watch the flames rise as we expose the chaos. Strap in for the war update, your unfiltered lens on how these audacious hits are crippling Russia's grip on the battlefield. Let's kick things off with a bang. On November 13th, Ukrainian Neptune missiles hit an oil terminal in Novorossiysk. The explosions could be seen for kilometers. This isn't just a strike, it's a symbol. Neptune was designed as an anti-ship weapon. The Luch Design Bureau developed it back before the full-scale invasion in 2019. Back then, few believed Ukraine could produce its own cruise missiles. But war forces adaptation. Now Neptunes don't just hit ships. They've become a versatile long-range weapon. Alongside them, new developments. The Barz drone missile, unveiled in April this year, capable of traveling hundreds of kilometers. And this isn't just weaponry. This is proof that under the pressure of war, Ukraine has created what once seemed impossible. On November 18th, Ukrainian forces struck the Voronezh region. They used American ATACMS missiles, among the most precise in the world. This is one of the deepest strikes into Russian territory throughout the entire war. Details are classified, but the General Staff confirmed: target, military assets, result, direct hit. What does this mean? First, restrictions are lifting. For months, Washington restrained Ukraine, prohibiting the use of long-range weapons against Russian territory. Now that policy is changing, not because of ideology, because of pragmatism. Russia is no longer a partner we shouldn't irritate. Russia is an adversary. Second, this changes the battlefield balance. When your enemy knows that their depots, command centers, airfields, hundreds of kilometers from the front line are no longer safe, they're forced to regroup, disperse forces, lose initiative. But Ukraine isn't stopping there. Partners are stepping up with game-changing hardware. Just a few days ago, on November 17th, Volodymyr Zelensky and Emmanuel Macron signed a 10-year agreement in Paris. France will transfer up to 100 Rafale F-4 fighter jets to Ukraine, Aster missiles, and anti-drone technology. This isn't just a delivery of equipment. This is a paradigm shift. The Rafale is a French multi-role fighter, one of the most advanced in Europe. It can engage in air combat, destroy ground targets, evade enemy radars. In the right hands, this is a weapon capable of controlling the skies. And it's also Europe's signal. Support for Ukraine isn't a temporary initiative. It's a long-term strategy. And France isn't alone. On November 18th, Spain announced an aid package worth 615 million euros, including air defense systems through NATO. Meanwhile, Ukraine is ramping up domestic production. In 2025, over 100 new weapon models were added, from drones to missiles like Flamingo and Barz. In other words, when Ukraine can't buy, it creates. When the West hesitates, it eventually moves forward. But even with all this weaponry, Russia doesn't stop. It continues to attack, continues the terror, continues sending its soldiers into the meat grinder. That's why the war continues not only on the battlefield, it's also happening in the economy. The sanctions the West imposed on Russia are finally starting to bite. A January 2025 report from the Royal United Services Institute shows the cost of Russian military procurement has increased by 50%. Russia is forced to buy drones from Iran, ammunition from North Korea. Chatham House noted in July, due to technology sanctions, Russia is experiencing innovation stagnation. Without Western components, production has slowed by 20 to 30% in key sectors. And despite Putin's assurances that sanctions change nothing, the numbers tell a different story. Russia's budget deficit in 2025 reached $30 billion. New taxes on electronics have been introduced to finance the war, as Reuters reported. And now, the final piece of the puzzle. Senator Lindsey Graham proposed a bill which goal is secondary sanctions against countries trading with Russia. This means tariffs up to 500% on Russian oil and gas for purchasing countries. If this law takes effect, it changes everything. China, India, other nations that continue buying Russian resources will face a choice: continue supporting Moscow or preserve access to Western markets. This isn't a threat, This is an action plan. Let's sum up. Ukraine is receiving new weapons. Restrictions on their use are being lifted. Allies are finally moving from words to large-scale actions. And economic pressure on Russia is growing, slowly, but inevitably. There's only one question. How long will this path take? How much time is needed for the Russian war machine to finally stop? We don't know the answer, but we know one thing. Every strike, every delivery, every sanction brings that moment closer. This was the War Update. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and be the first to know about Ukrainian victories.